Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Mickelson and I am the social worker on the Aurora Baycare Palliative Care Team. I am here today with my team member, Michelle Huvelman-Sponholtz, who is the nurse on our palliative care team. We've been asked to talk about patient scenarios related to advanced directives and have come up with 3 different case studies to share with you from our years working in palliative care. Just to note, the names and some of the identifying information has been changed to protect the privacy of our patients and families. Our first case study is a man we will call Tom. Tom is a man in his mid-50s with metastatic lung cancer or stage 4 lung cancer. He was coming into the cancer center every other week or so for treatment and was very independent with his functioning, meaning he was still taking care of himself, driving, meeting out with friends, even attending Packer games. Tom was not married, he didn't have any children, and his parents and siblings were already deceased. Tom's main support person was his girlfriend, Anne. When our team first met with Tom, we checked to make sure he had already completed a power of attorney for healthcare, which is something that we do with all of our patients. In this case, Tom had already completed a power of attorney, and he had chosen Anne, his girlfriend, as his primary healthcare agent, or the person who would make medical decisions if Tom were no longer able to. Tom was very open. He wanted to talk about his wishes for treatment and the future, including end-of-life care. However, he was unable to talk to Anne about his wishes and really didn't want to discuss it or talk about what that might mean in the future as the cancer progresses. So after some discussion, Tom decided that he wanted to complete a new power of attorney for healthcare. Tom and I met to complete a new power of attorney for healthcare. The document was reviewed and detailed and provided Tom the opportunity to express his wishes both on paper and with me. He ended up choosing a close friend, John, as his new primary healthcare agent. And Tom was encouraged to share the document with John. But not only that, speak directly to his friends about what his healthcare wishes were. Our team followed Tom for the next year or so and would occasionally revisit his document just to make sure that it still reflected his healthcare wishes. As the cancer progressed and Tom became more sick, his friend John started coming to his appointments to hear what the doctors were saying. Eventually, treatment stopped working and Tom made the decision to sign on to hospice services. After a short time on hospice, Tom's power of attorney for healthcare was activated, making his friend John the legal decision maker for healthcare. Because Tom and John had conversations about his wishes, which were also reflected in his document, John was able to confidently make decisions on Tom's behalf. Some of these included wanting to spend his final days in a hospice residence with medication to make him as comfortable as possible. He also had not wanted CPR or tube feedings, and he had hoped for visits from his pastor. John made decisions based on these wishes, and because of that, Tom had the peaceful death that he had hoped for. Our second case study is a situation that didn't go quite as smoothly. We'll call this patient Joseph. Joseph was a man in his 50s with metastatic tongue cancer that was incurable. He was single with one adult son whom he didn't keep up to date on his medical situation. Our palliative care team met with Joseph about a year after he was diagnosed. He had already gone through many treatments, including chemotherapy, and yet the cancer continued to grow. At our first visit with Joseph, we discovered that he had not completed a power of attorney for healthcare yet, despite the fact that he was already very sick. Before we had the chance to meet with Joseph again, he started to have a difficult time breathing and was admitted to the hospital. It was determined that an emergency tracheostomy was needed. A tracheostomy is a medical procedure that involves creating an opening in the neck in order to place a tube in the person's windpipe. This allows air to enter the lungs. Just before surgery, Joseph was able to quickly complete a power of attorney for healthcare. The ICU social worker happened to be in that day and was able to make it happen. Joseph made his son the primary healthcare agent, but didn't have the time to talk to his son about his wishes. Fortunately, the surgery went well. Although Joseph wasn't able to speak after the tracheostomy, he was able to communicate through writing to continue making his own healthcare decisions. But what if the surgery hadn't gone well? What if Joseph had ended up on life support and the medical team need to turn to his son to make the decisions? Well, to begin with, the son didn't even know that he was the decision maker, so that would have come as a surprise. Son was not knowledgeable about his father's health condition, and he would have had no idea what Joseph would have wanted in the event that he ended up on life support, which is a hard place for a healthcare agent to be. Asked to make medical decisions with no idea what the person would or wouldn't want. This shows how important it is to not only have a power of attorney for healthcare completed, but also to have conversations with your healthcare agent about your wishes. So what happened to Joseph after surgery? Well, our team facilitated discussion between Joseph and his son using the power of attorney for healthcare as a guide. Joseph shared his medical history with his son and spoke at length about his end-of-life wishes. Joseph's son became more involved in his care from that point on. As Joseph reached the end of his life, his son had a good understanding of his wishes and was able to ensure a comfortable and peaceful death.
This is Michelle Hubelman-Sponholz, the nurse on the palliative care team. Our third case study is Wayne. Wayne was an 80-year-old man with end-stage COPD, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. He was married for over 50 years with 3 children and 8 grandchildren. This was a very independent man. He was referred to us from his lung doctor, and that is how we became involved with his care. The palliative care team began seeing Wayne in our clinic for monthly visits. He did not have a power of attorney, and he viewed completing this document as an admission that he would soon die. After 4 months of visiting with him, Wayne did agree to completing this document, but it was only the bare bones of the document that he completed. He did pick an agent, and that agent was his wife. Wayne continued to visit with our interdisciplinary team in our clinic. He also developed a relationship with the nurse, and he would call and reach out every week or so. We were able to talk about what his wishes would be when his life came to the end. He was able to express that he wanted to die in his home. He did not want to struggle for air. He wanted his family to be supported. If his symptoms were not able to be controlled at home, he did want to go to a hospital. He hoped that I, the nurse, would be able to speak with his wife about this. I had encouraged him to be the one to talk to her, but he did not feel he could. He was worried about how she would receive these wishes. Because Wayne was able to make his wishes known to one of the team members on the palliative care team, I was able to talk with his wife about what Wayne's wishes were and what his power of attorney document expressed. I then was able to get Wayne and his wife to talk with one another. Eventually, his disease began to worsen, and Wayne was hospitalized at the end of life. Because he had spoken to me, and he had shared all the details of what he wished for the end of his life, and eventually talked with his wife, he was able to have the death that he so wanted. He was comfortable. He was not struggling for air or breath. All of his symptoms were managed in the hospital. The family did request the support of hospice care, so hospice was coming into the hospital. They were providing emotional support and spiritual support to the family, and all of Wayne's symptoms were managed until the end of his illness.
Well, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to share some of our experiences with you. We hope you found these scenarios to be useful.